Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Boakai, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, hey, in diaspora, current affairs, hey, reliable information, history, talking about culture, yeah, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we're going to be previewing the President's State of the Nation address. Yes, SONA is coming on shortly, and we're going to be looking at that. What do we expect? Let me welcome my panelists tonight, starting with Dr. George Williams. He's an educator and social commentator. Georgie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Dennis. I'm so happy to be here, and it's a pleasure to be in the company of other well-meaning Liberians to look forward to what the president has to say and what essentially we're hoping he will be saying to us for the years, the coming years of his presidency.
Thank you. Let me also welcome the new progressive, Dr. Clarence Pearson. Dr. Pearson, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be on the show tonight. I want to say hi to my fellow panelists and to our viewers out there and listeners, wherever they may be. It's a pleasure being back. My first sitting on the new year on the FOL. I mean, it's a pleasure being here, Dennis. I look forward to a beautiful conversation.
Thank you. Last and definitely not the least is the person we're trying to want to talk governance issue, our governance advisor, Mr. Adnan Salim. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure. I want to express similar sentiments. My first, I think, sitting as well since the new year, I believe so. I'm looking forward to a very good discussion and conversation.
Let me welcome all our viewers from across the globe. It's a Thursday. It's time to talk tough. Right here on Focus on Liberia. We're going to be looking at previewing the President's State of the Nation address. A year ago, at this time, the President was just a few days in office and he delivered his first State of the Nation. And this is how he started. I want us to just look at this. He said, the state of our nation is in distress, but the hope of our people is alive. That's the state of the nation. And then on the economy, he said the state of the nation, of the economy is a cause for concern, with many of our citizens facing perennial unemployment and economic stability. That's what the president said a year ago. Now, coming to this year's SONA, I want to lay out for our viewers also before we get into it, what really do we expect? So SONA will basically discuss or address an overview of the current state of the nation, highlighting key achievements, outlining policy priorities, addressing pressing issues, proposing legislative actions and often incorporating a call to action, all deliver with the goal of informing the public and setting the agenda for the coming period. It usually includes details on the economy, national security, social issues, foreign policy, etc., etc. So what they address is assessment of the nation's condition, a review of accomplishment, policy priorities, challenges and concern, call to action, foreign policy perspective, and appeal to unity, emphasizing the need for national cohesion and cooperation to overcome all the challenges we'll look forward to, we'll be meeting. So before we begin the show, I want to lay out there so that we can have some. Now we're going to go into 2025 SONA. As a way of your opening remarks, what are you looking forward to, Dr. Pearson? What do you expect?
Dennis, I think there's a big difference between what I would expect and what the president may probably speak on Monday. But I think my first expectation is chaos, given the complete breakdown in law and order when it comes to the House of Representatives, and the speaker being the chief host of that SONA. I hope they can settle that before we go into Monday, one way or the other. I heard that the minority, as they call them, the pro-speaker group is showing that they will be boycotting the SONA. And I also see at this crucial stage in our politics, the police is going after some lawmakers who are supposed to be hosting the president for some state investigation. But outside of that, when it comes to the political rhetoric, we'll be looking to hear the president talk about how he has handled our country over the past 12 months when it comes to the economy, the fight on drug, the upholding of the rule of law, and reconciliation and unity in our country. And I think these are going to be the highlights that he must convince the Liberian people on, that he has done his job per the assignment of the Liberian people in the trust to get the job done. Whether he has made some improvement in those areas, that's a matter for consideration and discussion. And I believe he hasn't done much, and that will be issues that will be elaborating on when we come into further discussion.
Thank you. Dr. William, the president last year, this SONA was given when he was barely like 10 days or so in office. So nobody expected him to give a state that says, okay, this is what I've done. This year's SONA is very different with a lot of things. Dr. Pearson alluded to a few of them. This is the first time we have the joint chambers burned. And people were even wondering, are they going to be at the joint chambers? Are they going to be at the Capitol building, or are they going to be somewhere else? Now there's the speaker, they call him the embattled speaker. And all these kind of things happening. With that, what do you expect on this day? First, with the organization, just basic setup. And who's supposed to be there? What's going to be happening? What are your expectations?
Dennis, as we speak, I just got off listening to Spoon and listening to a couple of representatives provide their perspective on what they think the process is going to look like. I will regrettably say, but unapologetically say, that leadership over the last 1 year has been lacking, woefully lacking in the country. Leadership at all levels, but primarily at the level of the executive, in terms of what the president's vision is and where he intends to take this country. Last year, there was no indication, and there still isn't an indication of where he wants to go and how strategically he wants to move the country. A lot of the appointments have had no strategic consideration. It's been generally messy from the office of the president. As far as governance is concerned, there's discoordination across government. Various actors play multiple roles, including public relations. The level of instability climaxing in what's currently going on at the Capitol has placed this government in a position where they have to do more. He has to say more than he's very much incapable of saying at this year's SONA. Unlike any other president, he has a lot more burden upon him just because of the poor quality of leadership he's provided over the last 1 year. As we go further in the conversation, a lot will come out. But as far as organization is concerned, you go back to even the inauguration. Well, we can argue that the inauguration wasn't solely his responsibility, but with the level of inordinate governance going on over the last 1 year, you can imagine what this program is going to look like. You have a divided House, a judiciary that's clearly hasn't decided what side of the fence they're on, whether on the side of the law or on the side of politics. You have a Senate that's struggling with itself, where 7 members are suggesting they're not going to be there. This is the first time in the history of our country where the legislative branch is in so much chaos as to basically jeopardize the State of the Nation address. And that's worrisome. That's worrisome. And so we'll talk a little more about it in more detail as we go along. And so as far as organization is concerned, there's no promise, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe a miracle will happen between now and Monday. I'm not sure, but we pray that it happens, you know.
Mr. Salif, you say House divided against, itself. The president is going into a divided House. How different is this SONA looking at other SONAs from Salif to Boakai?
Look, every SONA should be unique, and it should be consistent with the current context, the tempo, what's happening, what kind of leadership challenges and opportunities a leader has had to address. Look, there's a thing called intentional chaos in organized chaos. If you there's a whole theory around that, whereby to a lay person, all you see is chaos. When you have indelible structural dysfunctionality, as our society is, and you try to implement transformation, you produce a lot of chaos and dissonance and disorganization initially, or at least seemingly. So I hope that the president will talk about what he inherited from the chaos he inherited from President George Weah, and what he has done to form a government. Look, we have to admit, out the gate, the president is a very, very low energy person. He admits that, the way he speaks, the way he moves, it's hard to predict him. But when you have a country like ours, and the level of this organization and dysfunctionality, the intentional robbing of the state, the corruption, just the disloyalty towards the state, the lack of patriotism on people who are supposed to be state officials, who are supposed to be elected officials, who are just there for personal aggrandizing reason, and they don't even hide it. And then you want to form a government in that context. You have to consider, first of all, how you came to office. If you came in with a coalition of people who help you to get across the line, of course, you have to form a thank you cabinet in a way. And a lot of these people will be out of step with your vision and some of what you want to accomplish. So we've seen some missteps as a result of all of these things I'm describing. And we've seen what seems to be a lot of chaos and smoke, and sometimes real smoke, like, the arsenic attack on the Capitol. Look, we'll go into this, but Dr. Pearson alluding to, and our with colleagues here, our coordinator, alluding to, and this is Tough Talking Thursday, that it seems like the government is targeting some legislators. We have to speak on the straight side of our mouths. We can't speak this way and speak that way. You want rule of law. You want respect for the rule of law. You want a society where the law is equitably and equally administered to all. I don't care if is the president or the vice president or a cabinet official or an elected official. If there's probable cause for someone to be investigated under the law, that person should be investigated. The power of the state is still there. The nation state exists. If you have a chief executive who has a piece of job to do, you have disruptors and people who evidence suggests, I don't know, they're investigating, but you cannot invite someone to come to the police to answer questions if you don't have probable cause, good reasons to do so. If the state authorities have that, yes, let them. I don't care who it is. It could be any speaker, any former speaker, any of us. Court such people. To me, it's not that somebody is, trying to target this person, target that person. A lot of things that are happening we take for granted. That's why the country is where it is. Like the press conference CDC had, essentially threatening, daring the government to go after any of the elected officials or their party members. That's ridiculous. I mean, you can't do that. You're basically calling for war and chaos. We can't live like that. You have to allow the authorities to do their jobs. It's not, of course, perfect because, we're used to a culture of corruption and disingenuity, but the state has to be the state.
But does it sometimes have a semblance of or targeting people? If, for instance, one group of people being called for questioning in this case.
Yeah, that is look. We operate in a political context. I mean, that's theater of politics, right? For me, what I look for is what you're doing. Is this you basing this on objective evidence, or you basing this on just cause or probable cause or some kind of evidence where we see this? Because politics work in a way where the opposition could be machinizing and up to things that will lead to violation or potential violation of law, and they seem to be investigated, and people cry foul, right? It could be that's why it is. I do not know. We have to wait to see where the evidence leads us. But yeah, I hear your concern when it looks like you're not investigating your own partisans or officials in your government, or it seems like you're going after one set of people. That is unacceptable in any democratic society.
Thank you. Last year, and I showed this before. Last year, the president said the state of our nation is in distress, but the hope of our people is alive. Dr. William, what do we expect this year as to the president's description of the state of the nation?
We're in deeper distress, not just economic and social, but also political. Political to the point where we're at the brink of crisis. We're at the brink of a national crisis. Again, which has its roots in the poor leadership provided by our president, regrettably. I don't see the president sugarcoating or painting this situation any better than it is right now, where he sits and stands to read his State of the Nation address with several members of the legislature deliberately boycotting the program. I don't see how that could be a positive for him. It has never happened before. And we're at the brink. Today, Liberians are not only depressed about what's happening, their hope. We've always had hope. We're a resilient group of people, but that resilience is going to turn around into anger when you hear our people speak on the streets in terms of their frustration for the change that they are hoped for. And so, yes, our people have hope. But our hope could be tempered with anger if this government, this president, does not turn things around early enough. I don't foresee a situation where, if things continue the way they are, not only does it jeopardize Jeremiah Cohn's chances of replacing President Boakai, the Unity Party's hold on power just might dissipate, and it's dissipating really, really fast. And something
you.
has to be done. Something radical has to be done to turn things around.
Thank you. All through watching State of the Union, State of the Nation, I've never seen any president say the State of the Nation under me is bad. President Boakai said this because this was weird time, right? So the State of the Nation is in distress. Mr. Salif, let me ask you this. What do we expect President Boakai to say about the State of the Nation this time?
I think the State of the Nation, he will say, it's still challenging. They're doing things to arrest those challenges, to address those challenges. He will say, look, we've inaugurated the arrest agenda for inclusive development. He will say we've put in place counter development agendas. He will say we've constituted a government. He will say we've started moving things and the needles. We are on the cusp of acquiring a $500 million, a Millennium Challenge compact. He will say stuff like that. But I think if his people who have advised him and all these officials who have contributed to his speech are honest with themselves, they should also allow the president to express what's on everybody's mind. That the bread and butter, the palm butter and rice, the cassava and gravy thing are not all where they ought to be yet. There's concerns. People, of course, people have high expectations because of the mantra you came with. You say you are here to rescue people, rescuing them from some really terrible situation. You ought to really show that rescue, that you're here to rescue them. And the way they know it is the economy. It's the sort of what's on my children's table today, or what's in the home for family to feed on. Are people safe? The basic social services and things like that. They've been focusing a lot, it looks like, wanting to do infrastructure, wanting to do big capital investment, wanting to bring sort of in direction to the country towards investment and things like that. Those are all good. Those are macro things that governments do. But at the same time, it's better for a government to work hard to meet the basic expectations of its people in order to keep calm, to keep the peace, to try to avert some of the chaos that I've been hearing people are describing. But like I said in the beginning, sometimes chaos is not necessarily all bad, right? It could be because things have been so indelibly bad and chaotic, dysfunctional. You're trying to really be transformative. You are dealing with some, you're trying to break cultures that people don't even imagine. Let's look in the US here. Here's President Trump. He's doing all kinds of things and talking about things that people are scared. People are like, what is he up to? This is chaos, right? And so, sometimes it's like that. But I would say, of course, it's still very challenging. We can't sugarcoat it. We can't be dishonest about it. Economic conditions are still very difficult. Poverty is very rampant in the country. There's a lot of abject poverty. Because we feel it. Our people call us. We're solving problems. We're sending kids to school and doing all kinds of things for families and friends. And so we know, a lot of us here, we know how tough it is, even on us here, as we try to intervene with families and friends back home. And so if the president should acknowledge some of those things and then inspire the people by advancing solutions that he believes will address those concerns in a very short order.
Thank you. Dr. Pearson, I like how Mr. Salif put it, the palm butter and rice issue. I would say the fufu and soup, the basic fufu and soup issues. What would President Boakai say is the state of the nation this time, and how does that square with reality, in your view?
I should begin by saying, Dr. Salif or Mr. Salif, it doesn't register to me as honest when you tell the Liberian people, people that are listening to this broadcast, that chaos in leadership is a good thing. That's why you're insinuating. And your mindset to that is that there are diversity of chaos. And so you want to justify that to mean that the chaos we see in the national legislature as we speak is a good thing. That's what you're suggesting to me. And especially when the President Boakai, and his entire cabinet has been fueling, supporting, and propagating this very chaos because he wants an absolute control of the legislature, influence over the judiciary, and then have control over the executive. Let me tell you why this is wrong. When you look at the aftermath, the immediate aftermath of such a chaos that you're trying to promote here as being a good thing, then you're telling me that the burning of the Capitol building, which the president himself associated with arson attack, and his police force has considered an arson attack, is a good thing. So by correlation, your thought process to me is that, yeah, we should go and govern the country in chaos. And then that means it's a good thing for us. I totally disagree with you. Totally disagree with you.
Before Mr. Salif comes in, just like conflict, right? My understanding of this thing, just like conflict, it's not all conflicts that are bad, right? So there can be good that come out of chaos. I'm not saying, all chaos, right? So can you look at it that before Mr. Salif comes, can you look at it that it can you can do some good things in noise?
This disclaimer, I got my master's degree in peace and conflict studies, right? In as much conflict is a natural and normal part of society in our lives on a daily basis, it doesn't mean conflict is a positive element of society.
It can be.
Yeah, conflict necessarily will always exist, and we make the most of it. But for someone to sit on this platform and tell me that an orchestrated, willful manipulation of our capital so that we are having this deep divide that led to the so-called, I would say, alleged burning of the Capitol building is a good thing, I totally disagree. But would there be conflict among us? Yes, I agree. It's a natural phenomenon of life. But I would not tell my children, my young ones, and say chaos is a good thing. We should not see it. In fact, what he said precisely was that lay people see chaos, and in some good things that are happening, and just want to see chaos. There's nothing good about the Capitol riot, because that's what I consider that to be. When I see police people invading the Capitol building, firing those where the national budget is discussed beyond those when 28 or 30 lawmakers cannot access that budget, and the budget is passed illegally, and then representatives to that are isolated from that budget, their constituents' development funds are being withheld by the so-called majority black, and my district is also affected by that. District number 6, Monserrado County, we are affected by that as well. So what am I saying?
So, Dr. Pearson.
First time my name has been invoked too. Can I respond quickly? Because it's a mischaracterization of what I said, and we all heard it. Look, I too, I have conflict studies background, right? Though my undergrad was minor in conflict studies, master's degree level, dispute settlement in public international law background. So I studied conflict as well. But that's not the point here, right? We can draw from those backgrounds and really look at our situation. What I said was, and this is the truth, there's a social science theory around what I said. You can go search out. I said there's what's called organized chaos. It can be intentional storming and what seems to be chaotic because you're trying to address an indelible problem, a difficult culture of corruption, of disloyalty to the state. And if that's what you're doing, and then people are uncomfortable and people are fighting back, of course, what you see looks like chaos. And some of those things, people who are fighting back have criminal behaviors, and some of their behaviors may result even into crimes. Of course, I would not sit there and condone the burning of the Capitol building. That would be disingenuous, because you were here when the very first time it happened. My organization condemned it. I condemned it personally. I declare as an arson, an arson attack. And I think Dr. Pearson, you didn't even think that that's what it was. We should wait for the police to investigate. And you didn't trust the police. And I said, look, this thing looks and smells like it was intentionally done. And who can do that to your own country? So that's not what I was referring to. What I'm saying here, this is a political theater we're looking at. Okay. And of course, any president would like to advance their legislative agenda, if they see it being obstructed, because maybe the agenda includes transformation and some changes that are not to the benefit of sort of the rent-seeking official or corrupt individual, they will fight back. And what you see producing is tension and what looks like chaos. Okay, and within that chaos, you can, at the end of the day, you can produce an organized reform. You can produce a transformation that can benefit ordinary people. If that's what this government is doing, then to a certain extent, and conflict is inevitable anyway. So we can't sit there and pretend that, in political theater as it is with what's happening at the legislature, in the executive, around the president, and all of that. That's something that we've not seen before. It will happen. It will continue to happen. And again, unless you show me the deliberate interventions or measures that the president himself took or senior officials to orchestrate what we see happening at the Capitol. Otherwise, I would say, what did you expect? I mean, the president will go to the legislature to deliver the constitutional obligation, right? Because if certain members of the legislature say they will not be there, as our president said, as it may look like, they shouldn't be there. Then the president will still do what the Constitution says he should do. That doesn't mean it's on this president. I mean, you have people who are fighting for power, who are fighting for control of budget and resources for their own personal aggrandizing purposes, not for the sake of the people who elected them. What do you do about it?
I disagree with you on that.
Well, let if I can.
Yeah, let George come in.
I think I side with Dr. Pearson to the extent that what we see happening at the Capitol was orchestrated by the executive, by the president. And if you want evidence can be seen in the manner and form in which the executive interacted with, I would say, either side of or on the side of the majority throughout this process. So that's evident alone. You go to the roots. The speaker was invited for the first time to go along with the president to Rome. It was in Rome that this stuff happened. Okay, he comes back. His functionaries, the Mo Alis and the LRA officials, the finance ministry officials, are appearing before a divided house. When in fact the president and the executive were quite aware that the budget, there was no emergency with the passage of the budget, because regardless of what the situation is, there is a 12% that can be advanced to keep government running. So there was no emergency. It was all in an effort to ensure that this coup d'etat on the office of the speaker went through. So the likes of Mo Ali and the LRO officials and the finance ministry officials showed up in front of the majority bloc. The president could have said no. Nobody show up. Once these folks reconcile and put their house in order, yes, then we can go before them. The president had a clear opportunity to withhold the budget.
Thank you. I don't want us to go into the legislative thing too much before we forget the SONA. Let me welcome our colleague Tom, who is joining us from the nation's capital. Welcome, Mr. Kane.
Tom needs to face the light. We need to see his face.
I'm actually joining from Ganta, not from the nation's capital.
Okay, don't pass it.
The commercial capital of Nimba County.
Tom, you need to turn to the light so we see your face. We can't see
my
you.
face.
Face the light.
Ganta got better light actually than LEC sometimes.
Thomas, when you're facing the light, we'll see you better. But I want us to start. I want us to get into the SONA, right? First thing the SONA is going to do, and I will start with Thomas on this one, is the assessment of the nation's condition. A comprehensive overview of the current state of the country, including economic indicators, social issues, and national security concerns. Mr. Cannon, the president is going to give us the assessment of the nation's condition, a comprehensive review of the current state of our country. What are you looking to year?
Thank you, Dennis. You know, the SONA has a constitutional, it's a constitutional requirement.
Yeah.
So the Constitution lays out what we expect the president to deliver on. So the president have to give us an idea of the state of the nation in terms of security, the state of our economy, and he also has to lay out the legislative agenda in terms of laws that he want to present to the legislature for passage to be able to move his agenda forward. So there are certain part of the SONA that is that has to comply with that
Right.
constitutional requirement. So for me, on the state of the economy, once you've read the national budget, you see what the growth data the Ministry of Finance has presented. You see what the revenue portion that the LRA has presented in terms of their forecast. You've read the central bank reports to see what our national reserve is. For me, as an economist, that portion of the SONA is not something new to me because once you've read all of these different documents, you know exactly what the president is going to present on. What is going to be a bit of something that people look forward to is going to be his agenda for development.
Yeah, and we'll come to
And
that agenda. I want us
yeah,
to talk
so
about the current state.
so I mean the current state of the economy is definitely the president is going to tell you that growth is going to be around 5.6, 5.7. He's not going to differ much. He's not going to differ with the Ministry of Finance because much of the portion of the SONA on the economy is going to be supplied by the Ministry of Finance and the central bank. So at the beginning of this year, we are told that growth is projected at 5.8. I expect that the president is going to say that, and he's going to say that the macroeconomic foundation of the economy are in place, except for exchange rate that we have seen some variation in the past couple of weeks. Inflation has been much more stable over the past couple of months or couple of weeks. So I don't really expect a lot of change based on the macro foundation that we already have in place. So I'm expecting the president to repeat what the Ministry of Finance have already put out, except there are slight changes. And in terms of a legislative agenda, like you said, we're going to discuss.
Yeah,
In terms
we'll
of
get to
in terms of what he intends to do over the next year for development, that's something we can really forecast. But for me, I don't see a lot of changes on the macro side.
Right. And what about the fufu and soup issue? Some in America they say bread and butter. According to Salif, they say palm butter and rice. What would the president say about the basic fufu and soup issue in the country as the
So,
current
so,
state?
so this is the thing I normally have issue with. The fufu and soup, the GB and goat soup issues are normally decided by the macro condition of the country. If the macro is not doing well, you don't do well on the bread and butter issues. If the macro foundations are in place, then you can do well on that issue. So normally for me, I love to take it from where we are in terms of our macro foundation to be able to discuss those fufu and soup
So that
issues.
macro foundation is strong enough to support the fufu and soup issue. That's what you're saying.
It depends on the trigger. It depends on how the macro issues will be translated to the MICRO issues.
Dr. Pearson, Thomas is trying to confuse me.
You know, I can understand Thomas' condition, and I admire young people in Liberia, their tenacity, their resilience, and I understand where they are. I don't think Thomas want to be in the case of Wolo. I don't think he want to be in the case of Kane. I don't think he want to be in the case of any other young men that are being booted out of government right now, as they try to speak their mind. And Thomas being very professional. He has the capacity and the right to understand the economics issue in our country. And be diplomatic about it as a young man. I mean, I respect that. I mean, any good young man, educated young man will proceed like he's proceeding. But I want to say this for a fact. Look, listen, Dennis, the country is hard. The country is
I hope you are not you're describing Thomas as that young man.
The country is very the only person in the country is not difficult for is President Boakai, who is having party. Who is having anniversary he never had before, who is having birthday party for himself, birthday party for his wife, traveling on private jet, riding in a 1.2 million dollar of convoy, and so those are the people that the country is good. It's just the minute 9%. Let me say this, Dennis. Like the Thomas Reddy said, the U.S. rate right now has climbed up to almost close to 200 to $1 right now as I speak. The purchasing power of our people has been depreciated by the U.S. rate as we speak. All right, and not only that, people are losing. We have the unemployment rate in the country is pretty high. I know if Thomas is going to validate that, he will say he has the facts in his hand living in Liberia right now. The unemployment rate among young people is pretty high, rather I should say. And let's leave that, Dennis. You know, the basic commodity on the Liberian market right now is twice, if not, I wouldn't say twice. Some would say I'm over exaggerating, but it's higher than when President Boakai took office. Has the ordinary person in Liberia life changed since President Boakai rescued them? The answer is no. And we can say them and sugarcoat it yet. I think the best I can say, listen, Dennis, I think the president will just come and give us what World Bank said, the projection for our GDP is going to be 5% or 5.7% in 2025. We'll move on with that. They will say, well, you know, right now as we stand, Liberia stand to raise a revenue as close to $800 million to support the budget, and it's going to say, but all of these things are projections. Those are not realities. The reality is quite different from the every microphone. And Dennis, your journalists were in the field in Liberia the other day in market on the roadside asking Liberians, ordinary Liberians, what they made of the economic condition in the country. Dennis, you follow them. You follow your journalists and every other journalist. The country is hard, and I will stop there. You know, I don't want to open
right. But hard is not. Let's. I mean, to Thomas' point, he's looking at numbers. What does hard mean when you look at the numbers?
First of all, the poverty rate in Liberia has increased. If the poverty rate in Liberia is not decreasing, I think. I'm not checked the current value, but I think the poverty rate in Liberia is more than 60%. Thomas can correct me and provide actual numbers because he's playing with those numbers right now. But it's more than, the poverty rate is more than 60%, which means more than half of the population in the country is poor. Dennis, you will not believe this. Almost 90% of employable situation in Liberia are what they call vulnerable employment. It's in our latest report. Close to 90% or so of our people who are employed are vulnerably employed. They had the term, so they can say unemployment is too high. They say vulnerable employed. Thomas can verify that as well. So we're not in a good place, and I think politicizing our economy to say everything is okay when it is not is not going to be a good thing for our country. And I think we need to, like Thomas referenced the budget. I think that we currently have a budget that's not representative of the entire country right now. The budget was circumvented by a few individuals, about 49 of them. 30 lawmakers have no input in our budget as we speak, representing the constituency. And at the end of the day, that budget is going to be representing the whole country when some people don't have any input in our budget. How does that help the economy, Dennis?
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Salif on the assessment of the nation's condition, a comprehensive overview of our current state.
I mean, like, you know, both Thomas and Piasin have said in terms of what the Minister of Finance, Central Bank, and other agencies will supplied into the president's speech. No, that's why they're going. It's basically going to tell us what we know in terms of what the Minister of Finance is projecting right now. But overall, if you want to look at reports that Legislature has produced, for example, they did a household expenditure, HIES, household income expenditure survey a couple of years ago. Not very recent. Thomas can correct me on that. And what they look for is, okay, so how are households doing? Like, you know, who are the income earners in households? How much of that income is coming from informal sector, or which part of the economy? And most of what I think I read was that the country is largely an informal sector economy. It's a concession economy. It's an extractive economy. and even the macro foundation Thomas was talking about when in terms of the import from that extractive sector aspect of it. Those are the kinds of numbers that the president will be looking at and talking about how they've done on inflation, how they've done, what are they doing on GDP and all of that. But again, this palm butter rice issue that we're talking about, this, GB rice issue, we say bread and butter here. That's what people look at. People don't go to look for these big numbers that, people study, and we're talking about macro foundation and all of that. How are they doing? Can they afford food today? Is the country safe? Can people go to hospital and get excellent service and be cared for properly? How's the education sector doing? What's the sense of physical security in terms of law enforcement and things like that? When people go to bed, do they still have concerns about armed robbers or Zogo attacking them during the day and things like that? Those are the kinds of things. That's where the expectation management comes in, right? In terms of high expectation for rescue, and since the rescue launched to now, how have people's expectations been met? I watched a video too recent, I think 2 days ago. I don't know which journalist it was, but this person was interviewing people around SONA wine. And the lady kept saying, look at SONA wine. But she was specifically speaking to the elected representative, Prince Tolos, I think, who won the district that Akaras Gray represented. And she was saying he came here and said all kinds of good things. Our children will go to school. SONA wine here will be clean. But since he came, SONA wine is worse than when Gray was there, because they used to clean it every now and then. Those are the kinds of things. You're talking about high expectations during the election for which they elected this party and this president. And how has the government tried to really address those expectations and some of the concerns now? Those are the things that I'll be looking for. If the president will speak to some of those to try to allay people's concerns, to address them and inspire folks.
Right, and thank you. President will be looking at the numbers from Finance Ministry, from CBL and all that. And most of the time they look at numbers from World Bank. But I'm also interested what GJI will be looking at.
Well, GJ has been looking at, and in fact, we had a meeting today. We have a team that will be monitoring what the president will say, and then trying to pick those against what we know the numbers to be. So we're all monitoring, and folks are there who will be.
What does GJI think of the current state?
Well, look, I mean,
I don't want to put you on the spot because GJI
you should have let me know that GJI will be answering those kind of questions as well. But look, we have been being very concerned with the political situation as well, and how does that impact the image of the country? Okay, what's happening at the legislature, and how that conflict has been so protracted and sort of where it is now. How do we go beyond that? And the burning of the Capitol building, the impact of that, because it really plays on people's emotions, of what the state looks like, the symbol of authority, the symbol of our state. It's the first branch of government. If you have fire burning the Capitol building, what else cannot happen in the country? And so those are things that we've been investigating and really trying to see how's the government approaching all of this in terms of trying to bring about calm in the midst of seeming chaos.
Yeah, thank you. Let me go to Dr. Williams here. Dr. Williams, we're still talking about the current state. What are we expecting from the president, and how would that measure up against your own assessment of the current state?
So, Dennis, the president comes to the office with over 40 years of assessment. And by that, I mean, he's been an actor in government. He's seen the inefficiencies and also recorded part of the efficiencies of government. He's been there as a major player in terms of those aspects and those critical areas of the economy and the governance structure that are effective or could be perfected to help move the country forward. And so, as a civil society leader myself, for many years, governance, elections, I played a part in that before my transition here to the U.S. Has always been a concern. And so my trust is that coming to the presidency with so much quote unquote experience, though he's recorded a lot of failures and gaps over the last 1 year, my hope for President Boakai is not in seeing him build skyscrapers, but to ensure that the governance structures, the governance infrastructure of the country can be reviewed. I'm looking forward to seeing some radical reforms take place that will inspire Liberians. We talked about hope initially. We're hopeless at this point. We're hopeless because for the last 1 year, we've seen the same things happen time and time again. The budget is the same. Legislators are getting, or government officials are getting $45,000 for a car for 3 years. That's a ripoff. That's broad daylight robbery. That the government of Liberia, in a country where we're scrambling every day, going across the seas to beg people, would be spending $45,000 for government officials every 3 years. That's a ripoff. And those are things I really, really, really expect that this president would have put a halt to immediately upon hitting office. All right? We have some constitutional issues. We're going to elections in a few years. What are some of the changes we want to see happen? Does the president have the vision to contract government? I think government's overbloated. Do we need all the ministries we have? Do we need 75 representatives in a country of less than 5 million people, or 5 million? We say 5 million. Less than 6 million people. Do we need 73 representatives? Why not go back to the formula, the ratio that we had before, to ensure that we're saving money? We're saving money for our country and redeploying those critical resources back into education and health. Why are we overbloating the structure of government? So I would like to see the president speak to that. I would like to see him come up with some radical ideas about making changes. We have not had a mayoral election since 1977. Even there, Toba refused to have it because the mayor city of Monrovia was challenged. We have not had mayoral election. Successive governments have come and they conveniently found ways to circumvent mayoral elections. And we're okay with it. We're okay with it. When is that going to change? President Boakai is, 80 years old? He is one of the most fortunate presidents we have because his inspiration, motivation for leading change will be that whether he wins, contests or not, makes no difference. Makes no difference. He would have left a legacy. As it is, there is absolutely no record of this man leaving a legacy behind other than the desperate state we're in. And so I would like to see some radical changes being made at the declarations made at the State of the Nation on Monday.
Thank you. On Monday, also, the president will be looking at his accomplishment, will be reviewing his accomplishment, highlighting key achievements and successes of his government during the previous period. Dr. Pearson, let's talk about some of the key achievement of this president, his key successes that he's going to be highlighting.
Dr. Pearson?
Yeah, I want Pearson to start with the accomplishment of President Boakai and his success area.
Thank you, Dennis. I can yield to you, Connie, if you want to come in, Honorable.
No, in my wisdom, I want you to start.
Asking about the failures.
And no, I want to ask me about the accomplishment and the
let me
success.
let me just
Hey,
say,
doctor, that's Carter's point. It is a
No,
misplacement.
yeah, that's the misconception people have, is that when you criticize the government, then it means you don't see anything good in the
You
government.
don't need that one. You go straight to the point.
Yeah, so let me make a disclaimer, because people have a tendency of clipping just a portion of people's speech on social media, and then they say that what the president said. Listen, I want to start off by saying, Dennis, I do not support the current state of President Boakai's function as president of the Republic of Liberia, looking at all of the missteps that he's had. But I can list a few things. One of the things I see the president have done well, that he will underscore at the state of the nation, probably would be illegal sitting on the state of nation with an illegal speaker, would be that he signed off on the establishment for a war and economic crimes court. And if you ask me, I would say that's one of the things that I think he can boast about. Another thing I think he can boast about will be that I see some signs that they are implementing whatever rural project that was initiated by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, passed on to President Weah, some of which was President Weah's own initiation, passed on to him, and they are following through with those commitments when it comes to road construction. I think I can say I appreciate that, and I think that's one of the things they're going to say. They're going to list a couple of kilometers of roads that have been built across the country. Well, I mean, I'm happy with that, because I think what I've seen in the past, people abandon previous administration projects because they don't want them to be said that, oh, it was the person who did it and not me. So I think I gave him kudos on that. With the exception of those two things, I see nothing that is worth that the president can boast about. Our state of security is poor. Our state of unity and reconciliation is in the slum, and financial management of our natural resources and revenue is also a badly handled. Corruption is on the increase. A lot of false start, and we'll get to that later on. I just mentioned these things so I can be true to my true
Well,
self.
what you make of the arrest agenda? I think they did a good job crafting the plan and involving the county, especially the county one, right? You don't give it to them too as a success.
Dennis, President Boakai does not understand that arrest agenda. President Boakai does not know the arrest agenda. I know there are people who listen to me with thinking ain't no strong for me to say this, but let me say this to you. President Boakai has people who are developing those documents, who are thinking those documents through, who are selling it to him. But President Boakai himself does not understand the arrest agenda. And I can give you only 3 reasons why I think he does not understand the arrest agenda. The aid in the arrest agenda is for agriculture. Look at his national budgetary for agriculture. It's nowhere near prioritizing agriculture. All right. The arrow rule of law. Look at the level of devastation.
Arrow that rule, not rule of law.
No, one of them is rule of law.
One of them rule of law.
Oh, one of them.
Rule of law.
Okay.
Look
Yeah,
at the
that
devastation
too.
to the rule of law.
Yeah.
Right? I can see the rule, but then he bypassed the rule into a helicopter to a helicopter of private jet to go to Lofa a few days. I will jump over that. So I know how you spent $22 million to face road and then you go there with private plane. Let's get that. I would have driven on those roads to show the Liberian people that I said no car will get stuck in the mud, and I just drove on the very roads that I posted about and show it off. But well, he skipped that. Then let's go. I talked the 2 hours. ARRE, education. Look at the state of the University of Liberia. Look at the state of the university. Look at education across the country. Look at the budgetary allotment for education in Liberia. It's poor. Then lastly, they say terrorism. What is the budget for terrorism? What they mentioned they're going to push a bill for terrorism. The bill that they're pushing for terrorism is still in the committee room, sitting there somewhere languishing when he's in control of the Senate. So I mean, President Boakai. Look, listen, don't get me wrong, Dennis. I would love for someone to sit with President Boakai and reinforce to him what that agenda says. But from my technical know-how and what I saw President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did when I was in Liberia at the time of the different Madam Ellen, I'll close on this, sorry. But Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf used to sit in meetings, and the old lady knew every little detail that you should be working on as cabinet member in the arrest agenda. And if you give her reports that did not align with her agenda, she bring it up to your face. What's about that? What's about that? I don't see President Boakai saying it because obviously he's contradicting the very agenda that he's trying to promote.
Thank you. Our friend Sam Waller, who has been documenting the successes, said 1 year in office, 5 billion iron ore concession deal, past war crime, launched the ombudsman office, 8 billion in future MOU, concession businesses placed on the books. I don't know, did he list also, Dr. Waller, did he also list the chairs from China? Thomas, let's talk about the successes and the accomplishment of this president that you would believe is going to highlight on Monday.
Thank you, Dennis. Sometimes you don't want me going back to when people speak, but I think it's good to be able to correct some of those things. We haven't had any labor force survey for a couple of years now. So this whole issue of unemployment is 80%, is 90%, is 2008, 2009. For a couple of years now, we've not done any survey. The household income expenditure survey that Ahmed spoke about was 2016. We haven't done that. So at this point in time, we have a lot of work to be able to really collect data to show where we are exactly. The only data we can rely on poverty is what comes from our international partners. I think between 2012, 2013 on to 2014, before Ebola came, we had reduced extreme poverty to around 34%. When COVID came, 2020, 2021, it rose back. It was increasing gradually until it came to around 51%. I think the arrest agenda is saying that we want to reduce multidimensional poverty to around 34%, if I'm right on the numbers. So sometimes when we say these things, we're just referring to things that are outdated. And I should clarify that I'm not in the government. I don't work for the NSA to say that, oh, when someone says something tomorrow, they're going to fire him from his position. What we try on these programs is to be able to actually reflect what is happening on the ground so that we can inform the people out there. It's not because people want to protect what position they are in or not. So let's get that out. In terms of achievement, to be very frank with you, I'm in the country. I've been here for a couple of months. You know, institutional capacity development, the only way we can succeed is for us to have strong institutions. I remember once when President Obama came to Africa, I think it was in Addis Ababa, and he made a statement that Africa does not need strong men, we need strong institutions.
Ghana.
Okay, Ghana. What we suffer over the past 6 or 7 years is that our institutions were actually undermined. I was in Banga today, and the only thing I was at the county, I was at the city corporation, and right across the fence of the city corporation, you have this county administration building. And everybody kept saying, Thomas, do you see the county administration building? It wasn't like that a few years ago, but now it's being renovated. So much of the work that is doing to really be able to build the capacity of the institutions for them to function the way they need to function, people don't see that. Except that a kind of public sector pressing, this kind of institutional capacity development, you don't see that. People normally see the high side of development. Do we see the roads? Do we see electricity? But the electricity and the roads will only come because of the institutions that are in place, because of the policy framework that you have in place. So I think over the past 1 year is to actually reactivate these institutions so that they can continue to play their role. I think at the Justice Ministry a few days ago, we saw vehicles being provided for, how they call them, county, I think county attorneys.
County attorneys. Yeah.
County attorneys. And then you had a bus that was being bought by the staff, for the staff of the Justice Ministry who needed to come to work. Those things people don't see it. You go to ministries now, you can see that they are getting supplies to be able to do their work. All of this investment will have to take place before the ministries can start to do what they need to do. So in terms of achievement, I would say the administration is really trying to reinvigorate the institutions so that they can do what they need to do. This justice institution that we had in Banga, for instance, they call it regional justice what? Regional security hubs. We built one in Banga, and we needed to build one in the southeast and some other places to be able to promote justice and security. Those stores, a couple of years ago, it wasn't going forward. People have to come back to doing that. So I think for me, looking through the public sector, the first achievement I would really want to point to is the issue of what? Re-strengthening the institutions, both on the policy side, on the regulation side, for them to be able to play a role in moving development forward. I mean, some road construction has taken place. Moreover, you can see some of the roads that are being built. The War and Economic Crime School, like Dr. Pearson said, it has been up. There's some kind of question mark around that. I think it was a topic we needed to discuss with the kind of externalities that are taking place right now. That's something we need to look forward to. We can see water and sewer doing a bit of work to be able to move things forward. Ministry of Public Works doing some work. But on the governance side, I will say to you that there is still some limitations. I'm a governance person. To be very frank with you,
Thomas, let's look at the rule of law and how Yanfo is saying Boakai has flouted the constitution consistently. Talk about the suspension of neck balls, the tenure area, and all these things. Supreme Court said this, you find a way around it and all that. Let's look at success in the justice system. Has the government under President Boakai done well? This is an accomplishment. Because if we are doing these things, you can build all the courthouses in Banga. How you call that building again? That doesn't help.
the security hub.
Yeah.
This is why I was saying on the governance side, we have some limitations and challenges. And this is where we need to strengthen, because my worry has been, even with the issue of the MCC, right? There are indicators that are tied to rule of law. So if we don't be very careful, we might be developing a compact, but yet we will not do well on some of the indicators. So rule of law, there's a challenge that we need to address. On the issue of the tenure positions, I think the president backed off on the issue of the tenure positions. I can say to you, when the LTA issue was over, from that time, we haven't seen the president actually removing tenure officials until we saw this issue of the elections commission. Based on what I read, the president said she overstepped her bounds. She said she was going to close the elections commission for a month, which was not a consensus of the board of commissioners, which is the highest decision-making body of the National Elections Commission. I think there's a sensitivity around that because the elections commission is an integrity institution. So we need to look at how that will impact on the functionality of the elections commission moving forward. So on the governance side, there are all these limitations. The asset declaration. I think the president has issued ultimatum 2 or 3 times. I'm not very sure how many of the government officials are going to be able to declare their assets. The establishment of the ombudsman, it was something we all celebrated until the Unity Party and AFO and some political parties took the ombudsman to court and they won the case, which is a strengthening of the rule of law, because they went to court and they said that the ombudsman wasn't right to take them to court until there was a complaint filed before them. So challenging the rule of law is also part of progress. But generally, I would say on the governance side, that's something we need to really strengthen, because if we can strengthen governance and we can strengthen rule of law, we cannot even have economic growth. And all the things we're talking about growth will not be achieved.
Just end with the asset recovery before I go to Mr. Salif.
Asset recovery, I think Salif will answer that. I don't know where they are.
Mr. Salif, let's start with asset recovery. We're talking about the accomplishment of President Boakai and the fact that President Boakai will declare his asset and add people to do that and nobody listens to him. It's like he's not leading, he's only taking a walk. Agree?
That's an area of challenge we've all observed in debate. I mean, because when the president says something, the president gives an ultimatum, for example, there should be consequences for those who flout that presidential ultimatum or order. And it's also violation of law because the asset, the LCC Act calls for that. So it's an area of challenge. We're seeing, this strong leadership and disciplining people, really sending a strong signal that if you're not ready to be transparent, declare your assets, then you don't have a place in the administration, because when you come to government, that is a condition, that you declare your assets in the beginning, so we know where you stand, even if it's not published, because I think that publishing aspect is optional. So people have been abusing that. They don't even want it to be published. And that's the other thing. So we don't know who all have declared assets and have not been published, and therefore LSCC may have and the public doesn't know. That maybe that's an area that needs to be, transparency needs to be strengthened around as well. As far as the asset recovery task force they put together, that's a singular thing that I myself I expressed disappointment in. And they had a lot of missteps in the beginning because it wasn't put together. They didn't start properly. I mean, we have questions around people who were placed on that task force and the way they were selected and all of that, but the president has the authority to appoint people, to dismiss people. Okay, so that was the appointment side. And then the work itself, the way this started, there were a lot of procedural errors. There were a lot of substantive errors of following legal procedures, or really putting a framework in place so that when you went after somebody's assets that you consider suspect, right? You have good reason to be doing so, and you have procedure to respect due process and all of that. So they don't sue you, because in Liberia, I mean, those are the lapses. People will sue you and they will work the court system. They know how to do it, and they'll block it. Some judge will block it. And that's what we've seen. Beyond that, we haven't really seen them reactivate, demonstrate that they've come back prepared and ready. They've put together a framework to be able to execute on that mandate. And the asset recovery work is very important because it's one area where the public can really see the transparency and the seriousness and the commitment on fighting corruption, going after illicit and illegally acquired wealth, whether in real property or whether in liquid asset or some kind of, whatever it is that an individual acquired and they can account for, and if it's traced to a government public funds, that should come back to the state. Those are resources that could bolster our budget, that could go towards public administration. And so I think some of the limitations Thomas mentioned, those are really challenges and areas that they ought to work on.
And let's talk about where they have, had successes.
Well, I mean, the successes are to even be bold, to declare that you're going to fight corruption, that you want transparency. The president declaring assets, some senior government officials, publishing. That is not the norm. It's not the tradition in Liberia. I mean, of course, it's a trend because other countries are similar to our size and characteristics and trends that international partners are encouraging and promoting in terms of transparency and fighting corruption. Sometimes as a condition for aid, sometimes as a benchmark against how other states are doing. There's good reason why states really try hard to meet some of these commitments. Whether it's rule of law, whether it's just that transparency and corruption side of things, to really demonstrate that on these various scores, the government is moving on them and the government shows commitment. I think it's a good step to show that, look, this corruption thing has plagued our country for a long time, has stifled growth, and we're going to do something about it. It may be gradual before people come around to it, but I think we can commend the government for trying to just introducing a first start. Hopefully, they can go back and retool and come back in a more vigorous, just way that they can, implement, and people's rights will be respected. At the same time, those who have engaged in criminal behaviors can be penalized.
Thank you. I think 2 persons resigned from the asset recovery. I don't remember if they're being replaced or they don't name them. Dr.
Martin Colley and somebody else.
Gongwe, the EFF. Maybe the acting like Dr. Sawyer VP when he was not there. He's hit my mom will carry on. Let's talk about the accomplishment that President Boakai going to be touting on Monday.
I mean, previous speakers have listed a few. I think the attempt at setting up the War and Economics Crime Court, I will think I'm a proponent not for war court. I'm more of a economics crime court. I think as far as the war crimes is concerned, we've moved way beyond that point. Our people have seen it fit to elect those very same people. They've been in office for over 20 years now, and more are being elected every day. I think our courts should, if there's anyone who simply has an issue with someone as a result of the war, could charge that person criminally and take them to court. I think.
Let me interject. Maybe the people are looking at this because they say, well, when 2 chicken fighting, cock robot, you got what business you got to do that? They will eat you, right? So since the government and everybody is okay with it, what do you expect the regular, ordinary people to do? Right?
Yeah, I mean, we're very.
So let them just get my own thing and eat it and go sit down because I know this.
Yeah, we're basically driven by the sentiments of the Western societies. We never really rationalize some of these institutions and brands that we put on ourselves. We started off with a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The intent was that people will sit around the table and talk. And that's who we are. That's what our society is. The whole aspect of war crimes was to ensure that those who are recalcitrant, those who didn't feel any level of remorse, and those who bore the greatest liabilities for the war would then be brought to war as a way of discouraging others from ever attempting it. What is unfortunate is that the main architects of the war, are never hardly mentioned anywhere in the conversation. Those who supported the factions, those who financed the process. Yes, President Sirleaf was barred for 30 years, but the same President Sirleaf who was barred was given a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing war in Liberia. And she won a second term. Nothing became of that. Not one Western journalist was able to question President Sirleaf receiving a Nobel Peace Prize. So that truly undermined a lot about the whole concept of war crimes, because we're hypocritical about it. The ombudsman, how effective that's going to be. Is the government going to resource and empower? We talked about, someone mentioned institutions. Are those institutions going to be empowered to do what they need to do? I'm not sure about it. We'll go to the asset recovery. You take a critical function of one agency of government and you give it to another, you set up another agency to carry out the function. And they feel it's, again, Dennis, there is a lot.
You think President Boakai going to mention these things on Monday about asset recovery, the ombudsman, war crimes?
There's nothing to celebrate about, but he might mention the ombudsman, but there's nothing to celebrate about asset recovery. Because
let's move forward to his policy priority, and I will start with you again, Dr. William, the president will be articulating the most important policy goals for the coming year, including legislative proposals to address them. I mean, this time now to talk about the president, the legislative, the legislature is like, okay, who are we talking about here?
Who are we talking about?
Yeah.
I would like to, I will hope, Dennis, I will hope that this president will put forward an aggressive legislative agenda that will look at things, governance, the governance infrastructure of our country, and put out suggestions, policy suggestions that will turn this country around, transform this country into more effective governance landscape. Again, as far as the legislature is concerned, you look at issues of tenure. Do we want senators being in there for 9 years, representatives for what? 6 years? That's way too long. Way too long. I will hope the president will put forward a referendum agenda that will be financed internally, locally by our people. This thing about looking outside for solutions for every problem. We went outside, we brought in a non-Liberian to handle the problem we created at the University of Liberia. We cannot continue to use external solutions to our problems. They must be homegrown, they must be home managed, they must be home financed so that we respect the changes we make. As it stands, we do not. We do not, because ever so often we go out to the World Bank, the UNICEF, and we borrow to make it happen. So we're able to afford a $45,000 car in 3 years. Those things need to be cut off. Cut off. Many of us here in the US, we ride cars for over 5 years. We still pay car note. And those cars are still good. Yeah, you will argue say the roads are good, but our legislators need to be in the country. They need to make laws. They need to institute follow-ups and surveillance on a lot of these institutions to ensure that the roads they are building are durable. And that if those roads do not last over with guarantees, that those who superintend the building of those roads are held to account. But check out the layout, the legislative layout, financial layout to legislators. That is way too much money. That's way too much money. It's way too attractive. No wonder the entire legislature is focused on retaining their seats rather than making laws. Because it's way too much. It's way attractive. You know?
Thank you.
And so the president needs to turn things around. If not, we have to lead that radical agenda for change. We have to hold our representatives and senators accountable. We have to forward the policy suggestions and hold them accountable for not discussing those and not rely on President Boakai to do it. Because as it is, hey, if you have the entire government falling at your feet under your watch and you're doing very little about it, whether he's doing very little or cannot do anything about it, you know, that's scary. And so it's upon the citizens now to take the bull by the horn. Yeah.
Mr. Salif, President, we are used to, you know, things that's supposed to be wrapped up in policy. He goes to the church to complain about it. This year, we see it also, President Boakai. Sometimes you want certain things done. Like, for instance, the drug, when he took the drug test. I mean, if you don't put a policy around these things, if you don't make them, you know, something that, you can lobby the legislature, pass them into law, I mean, they're for nothing. What do we expect, President Boakai? You know, if you want people to, say, do their annual physical, you make it a requirement maybe to go to school or a requirement to get to work, you know. That way, people know that when they come in next year, they got to go to JFK to get their annual physical. But if you just say, let's do it and don't put anything around it, what do we expect from the president now that all these things that he has outlined, that he's going to go through, you know, the legislature to be able to have laws governing them or put some policy framework around those things, even if they're executive orders? Let's look at the president's legislative agenda for the coming year.
Sometimes, Dennis, in policy analysis, there's a thing called trend settings, and that is the people with good offices, the presidents, and all these high-level officials. They go and front things, right? They do something so that the population can see that this is something that's good. These celebrities, there's some people who are trendsetters who may not have formal titles, but because a lot of young people follow them, a lot of people, they have large followings in society, they have influence, they do things. They ought to be seen to be normalizing things for the public so that the public can kind of warm up to that particular idea. And then you'll have technicians, and you'll have policy framework developing around that, and technicians will help to make sense of that for implementation purposes. So there's nothing wrong with saying, look, drug is a huge problem. It will take time for us to really do analysis to understand where we are, how we got here with the drug thing, what do we need to do to get out of it, and then let's develop this policy framework. If it has to go to the legislature, let's include it in the legislative agenda and so on. So it takes a long time, to really come to what you're talking about, policy framework, and then let's have a system and drive budget towards it and implement it. If it's an emergent situation, it's good to start doing that trend setting part of it before you can really put it in framework. But in terms of the legislative agenda, I think a lot of it will be around the AAID, the arrest agenda for inclusive development, implementation of it, aspects that need legislative consent or that need further fleshing out through legislations and through rulemaking. I think we'll see some of that, really trying to expand and advance that agenda in terms of legislations. There may be new ideas that we're not aware of that the president may be announcing, because part of the state of the nation is you do the assessment, you present to the Liberian people where we are in terms of these constitutional requirements. But on the aspiration side, the president makes announcement. The president casts a vision for the future, why net, so that people can see themselves in that. And some of these aspirational aspects too can lend themselves into a legislative agenda down the road. So we don't know. We may know some things. We have ideas because what we know, some of the numbers and some of what's in policy that we see various agencies, commissions, are working on. But there are those that will be surprised and won't hear in the SONA, and that's fine also.
You think the president will put anything together concerning fire? Because fire is just too much, man. Everywhere is burning.
I'd be very surprised if he doesn't talk about that, because that is a national emergency. I mean, it's a big concern. Yeah. I'm even at this point, I would have thought that by now our government would have investigated truly to see what is the cause of these fire incidents in the community. That really hurting people dying in their homes. Is it electrical issues? Is it criminal? To really try to study and do some surveillance around that, just like public health, a public health crisis, right? You have these public health experts, they have their system they put together, they do surveillance, they try to disrupt any mutation or disrupt any type of spread. The similar approach should be applied to these fire incidents, but we haven't seen that systematically done.
Right. And like what we're talking about, maybe that's how fire alarm will come in. There's something, but it's like, but let me go to Tom. Tom, we're talking about policy priorities. What would the president be articulating as his important policy goal for the coming year, including his legislative agenda?
I think that Ahmed said the policy priorities are all laid out in the AARD National Development Plan that he launched a couple of days ago in Grand Bassa. So normally, I think the approach to the legislative agenda is to remind the legislature that I had previously submitted these pieces of legislation to you, which are part of my agenda to be able to move things forward, and I'm still waiting to hear from you. I think when he last had his SONA, he presented a couple of legislations and he highlighted them. One was to create the Ministry of Local Government. One was to create the Tourism Authority, which the legislature have not has not completed or have not passed. I think some action have been taking place on some of these legislations in the lower house, but the concurrence from the Senate has not come. So you will see that the president will normally remind the legislature that these are pieces of legislation that are submitted to you, and I'm still waiting to hear from you. So he will reinforce that message, and then he will bring forth new ones that he intends to submit. So for me, based on what I have been hearing over the past couple of months across the different sectors, I will expect that, for instance, the Bureau of State Enterprises, they've been doing some work to be able to have a legislation that will actually establish them, because they were established under the PRC regime. So they actually want to have this legal uh, process of establishing them that goes to the legislature. It is an act against passed, and then they can be fully, they can have this authority to be able to actually supervise and monitor the work of the state-owned enterprises in Liberia. So I'm expecting that, based on the work that has been done over the past couple of months, that will be part of the president's legislative agenda. I've also heard over the past couple of months that the Governance Commission and the LACC were working on the anti-corruption strategy. And if that work that they had done has progressed to the point where it needed some legal reforms, maybe there will be something that the president will submit in that line. There have been some conversation around establishing an agriculture bank, and that is in the plan that the agriculture ministry developed over a couple of months ago. If the government is actually going to move ahead with that, I will expect that the president will maybe, if the instrument is not ready now, he will talk about it, that it will be coming forth to you for legislative action so that they can create the agriculture bank. So there are a couple of these things that I really expect that the president is going to move forward on. If the asset recovery regime is not strong enough and he want to improve it, and it requires legislative action, that's something that I expect will be submitted. But we expect that that list be really populated with issues related to governance, because that's where I think we have some little issues that need to be addressed so that we can strengthen those institutions to be able to move them forward.
But Tom, that will call for lobbying the legislators, right? Especially with the vice president being there. And how you think the president is going to do it with what's going on? And Mr. Cohen himself, or Khan himself, was implicated in doing things to. So how easy or how it is for the president to really get his legislative agenda through, given what is occurring currently?
I think what is occurring currently is it seems to be subsiding gradually. So if everything goes well, I think I saw some news flash today that the police ID had requested some of the lawmakers to go in to have some conversation with them around the burning of the Capitol. But I think it's going to subside in the next couple of months. And eventually we get to the point, if Kun moves forward, because we've seen the majority bloc, they've come over to them to say we'll come over and participate, and then we'll raise our issues with you. But in the long run, if Kun remains, he's the speaker right now. He's a Unity Party speaker. So I don't think that president is going to have a lot of lobbying, because they are all from the same party. So I think they should work together to be able to move things forward. So that time that it takes to be able to lobby should actually reduce. And if after the launching of the National Development Plan, if they have this momentum to be able to move and fast track development, I think there's going to be a lot of work around that. I will also say that on the side of roads, I have seen the National Road Fund publish something that they want to develop some policy around toll. You know, when you have these roads that are built by other institutions and then you drive along them, you have to pay some fees. They are developing a policy. So if there is no legislation around that, there may be that's something that the president will have to submit to be able to establish the legal framework for collecting tolls in our country, because we haven't had that. I've had some conversation that are some companies that want to build roads that they can be able to collect toll around that. So I think these are conversations that the president will have with the legislature, but I think with the speaker and the president now from the same party eventually, I think the lobbying will reduce and they should be able to move forward as fast as possible.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this is Tough Talking Thursday. And if you want to join the conversation, the number is on the screen, 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403#. And Dr. Pearson, the same question, but let me add to this, right? The president talked about in the arrest agenda, roll. And when we say roll, the first thing that comes to mind will be the 285 yellow machines. If we say also in the arrest agenda is the letter E, education. And if one thing that comes to mind, scholarships, including the one from the First Lady's office. Now, sanitation, it looks like everything now has been consumed and swallowed up by this whole legislative saga. So even what the city corporation was doing, we don't see much of it anymore. Maybe we got to fire now has taken over and all that. So with the president legislative agenda, what do you think will be done legislatively about the yellow machine? Send them back, pass them into law. But let me get your take on what the president legislative agenda will look like and how is he going to push that?
Thank you, Dennis. I think the panelists that spoke on this before me did touch some of the things I would have talked about, and I get a couple more to add. And when it comes to the yellow machine, I mean, we don't need any other laws other than our PPCC laws, our PMF law. Those laws are already on the book. Our procurement laws are already on the book. The president just disregarded those laws, probably being misled by those he has around him. And then as we speak right now, the Vice President Jeremiah Kuhn should have a report on that yellow machine that should be made public, but he's keeping it to himself. And I'm hearing that once they can succeed in getting the House to be dominated by Unity Party, then they will just silence that report on the yellow machine and go ahead and appropriate money in the budget to procure those yellow machines on a much more lower cost than they initially projected. So that's where they are with that. On the issue of education, I don't see any seriousness from the president on that issue. I'm not sure how he's going to fix it when it comes to scholarship. The Booker scholarship beside the first lady issue office that is going back and forth with that scholarship scandal. You already know the one that came from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The president came up publicly and spoke about, and Liberians have lost their money into that. Some people lose their job in that regard because they spoke against it, and now that it is a failure, nobody talking anything about it, even though the Ministry of Information, Culture, and Tourism were boasting that it was a correct deal, and now it falls through the cracks. So again, it goes back to unaccountability, failure to take responsibility, and lack of transparency. So, but I want to talk about the legislative. I think some of the things I want to see when the president sit under the illegal speaker, Kuhn, if they must have a State of the Nation address in an illegal setting, I think some of the things I would want to hear from him would be, is there a bill now that is available for the War and Economic Crimes Code? So let us know that the War and Economic Crimes Code cannot be established on the basis of executive order. It has to be through out of legislature. As similar with the asset recovery that is being challenged in the Supreme Court right now. And I hear Thomas mentioning that some collaboration between the LACC and the current asset recovery team. I think that's in a good direction. I think they should revisit the laws of the LACC to see if they can find a way to accommodate the unique situations of the asset recovery team and absorb them under the jurisdiction of the LACC. That would be a good approach. in my mind. So if there's an amendment to the LDCC Act in that regard, I think that would be a plus. I would like to see a bill on agriculture. I don't think agriculture should be left to the whims and caprices of individuals. I think we should have an agriculture bill as per what we want the country to go in terms of agriculture. And that bill should encompass the establishment of the Agriculture and Development Bank that we mentioned before, Thomas just mentioned. We've been advocating for that along the way. So, I mean, all of that could just come in on one big package. And I'm looking also to see if President Boakai would mention anything around the Liberia Investment Act. I think we've outgrown the current Liberia Investment Act we have right now, the one that protects what type of businesses Liberians can do and cannot do. And what I mean in terms of foreign business persons. I think some things in that bill. I see Senator DeLong is pushing that act. I mean, when it comes to getting Liberians doing some jobs that is set aside for Liberians, he's doing his best. But there are a lot of loopholes in there. If they can strengthen that law to not only just include those what I call normally petty work, what we call blue collar work, less minimum jobs that we talked about. And I think we need to look at that as well. To include, and I will say this just for the year of those who may be following this program, some connection to ensuring that when we have concession companies in the country, those concession companies should have some technical link to our universities, especially University of Liberia, in those technical fields that involve those companies, so that the companies can absorb our brightest minds that are graduated from these institutions and can have some practical work relationship with those companies, whether it means road building, whether it means extraction and agriculture, wherever. Let have some educational link for practical experience for our young people that are graduating with opportunities. And lastly, I would like to see, Dennis, in a strong way, the president putting forward a national spending bill that will tell us, what salary structure is for government, across SOEs. I would like to see, some cap put on benefits and enumerations across different government agencies, ministries, and SOEs. I would like to see strong laws on how revenue generated by SOEs are safely guided so that those revenues are reflected. And I always say this, reflected as part of our country's revenue generation to project our development agenda. Not having people saying they're doing social corporate responsibility. One day, what a boy named Moali can get and say, oh, I gave him $10,000 for somebody to go buy rest for some people, less fortunate people. One day, my brother at the LPRC can get and say, I'm buying cell phone for another group of people. I mean, that's not how we approach development in our country. Development in our country should encompass all of our potential income generating institutions so that revenue can be strengthened in a centralized way. I know Thomas disagreed with me on this before, but I think we should have a bold approach to safeguarding waste in government and safeguarding the resources that we can generate from our country.
Thank you. Let me bring in our callers at this point. Tadma is our first caller here. Tadma, go ahead. You're live, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. Thank you, gentlemen, for time taking up to discuss the most important issue.
Please excuse my dog.
Mute yourself, Dennis.
The SONA is actually based on, from my own perspective, is based on two things.
Hey, stop it.
Your accomplishment, what you have achieved as a government, and then what the citizens should look up to for your coming years. Those are the things you put forward. So it's just summarized in 2 fifths. All right. Now let's look back. What has this government achieved? We have government segregates on this show try to put up some issues here that the government has achieved this and that. Where can you point your finger on? I hear somebody talking about institutional building. The very government, the very leader of this government, the president, is breaking down all of these institutions we have that already been established, breaking down all the laws. He disregarding the laws of the constitution of the country. And you're talking about building institutions. The one we have here, the laws that govern the country, the very man that is the head of the country, he's breaking those laws. Now you're talking about the last time you were talking about I heard one of your panelists there was defending the developmental budget that the government put for. Let's assume this way. I'd say I try to build my house, and I did a calculation that it would cost me like $1 million to construct this house. Out of the $1 million to build this house, I only have $500. The rest of the money will come from you, gentlemen. I will be asking you to pay the money. Borrow and give me money to complete my house. It make any sense? You have a developmental budget, and then 70% of that budget will come from donor funds. Does it make any sense? It doesn't make no sense. You depend on someone to sponsor you, to help you. You're talking about developmental budget? Is that a budget there? Are you going to depend on somebody, donor funds, to carry on your developmental plan? It makes no sense. So what has this government really, really accomplished? Because that's what the SONA is about. Tell us what have you accomplished, and what is the vision you have for the future? What can the people look up to? Nothing. Nothing. Actually, there's nothing. Absolutely, there's nothing. I see no accomplishment in this government. All we see is chaos. Rule of laws have been broken by this president, and everyone is around him. So you have government surrogate coming on the show to defend them. I don't see what is defending. They can't pinpoint one thing, one accomplishment, solid accomplishment that this government has done for the past 12 months. Can you put your finger on one thing that the Liberian people can talk about? We know that about 60% of the country on living on a poverty. 60%. People don't have food to eat. We in the United States, we got to send money to our family back home. I have my little sister who was very sick. She went to JFK. We brought all the medication back at night. No water. Water to take her medication. Water. They told us we got to go and get water. 2 o'clock in the morning, where can you go and get water? They said we don't have water at the hospital.
Then how many hours later?
2 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you.
That's surprising.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Tadma.
Dennis.
Thank you. Let me bring in Mr. Aaron Pobla. Aaron, you're live.
Hey Dennis, how you doing? It's been a while.
I know, senior player.
Yeah, Dennis. Let me weigh in on the conversation a little bit. I just wanted to, add up to what the caller who just left said. Dennis, it's very sad. This guy just said it plain blank what the state of the nation address is about. Okay? And, I don't know what the president going to talk about on Monday. I'm confused. Is he going to talk about, getting money from water and sewer and the Ministry of Transport to bribe legislators to remove the speaker illegally? That's what he's going to talk about? Or he's going to talk about paying for legislators to stay at RLJ? What's the accomplishment? For typical example, that is, Thomas is on the show. Had it been, former President Weah, who are making these kind of mistakes, Thomas then would have had a field day with this stuff, running with it. Now today he's talking about, the president will not go contrary to the Minister of Finance and the central bank and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to listen to the president's SONA on Monday because I know there will be nothing there for him to say.
Thank you.
There's no achievement. He has broken all the laws in the country. Everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, there you have it. Time is fast spent. We'll go straightly into our Tab session. But Thomas, they call your name plenty, so maybe you want to say something to our callers before we move on.
Dennis, I was on the last, I think it was on Tuesday.
Monday.
It was on Monday. And this issue of the 70% of, to say you develop a national development plan and you say 70% of the resources will be provided by the donors. I try as much as possible to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very unfair. The government took almost 6, 7, 8 months. Liberians went across all the districts in this country to develop that national development plan. And the government says that our domestic resources will fund 30% of the plan. 35% will be funded by private sector. And we all say that private sector is the engine of growth. And then 25% will be funded by our development partners. And I also said that even that language that it will be funded by development partners, in some instances, it comes through grants. In some instances, it comes through loan. The one that will come through loan, we have to pay back in the future. So even though it will come through the partners, we have to foot the bill in the future. For people to take that, no, one second, Dennis. Yes, I know. But for people to take those that line in the development plan to discredit the 300 and some more pages that is in the development plan, it's unfair. People should go and read the plan. Not to just come and use that line. And that's what I was saying to Gabriel. So now people listen to you, they take it and they run with it. So they will no longer read the plan for the next 5 years, which is not good. So let's go to the callers.
Thank you. Evans is on the line. After Evans will be our Councilman James Nalasa. Evans, go ahead. You have a minute. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Evans.
Are you getting me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Saying thank you to you and hello to the panelists. Look, I'm just excited. I'm excited because we're finally coming to get the yellow machine. And I think that would be the president's first big accomplishment. They've already obligated themselves. And in order to pay for this yellow machine, they must remove Fonati Kofa so that the way will be clear, so that they can pass this money and allocate this money to pay for that yellow machine. So I'm happy for the president. He's done it against the way he knows how. So now that the way is clear for him to pass the bill or whatever shenanigans they're going to do to pass it, let him pass it. But for anybody in the sound who is educated to say that this is an accomplishment, when the man is clearly breaking the laws, if you use illegal means to try to do something good, it's the whole act. And any fruit that you bear from it is illegally gotten. So you first have to tell the president to abide by the rule of law. If he's doing the things that he's doing to try to clear path so that he can get an easy, a sailing, like Thomas was saying, now the path is clear, but when the civil party so that should push back. That's what we want in democracy. You left America to sit in like so we can live on a dictatorship. Kudos to you. I mean, this is the things we like to hear on the platform. I want somebody who will take our step back, because if we want some of these shows, some of these guys will get mad at us because we're telling the hypocrisy that they're talking. We see it clear as day. So good job to President Boakai. Maybe next Monday he will tell us how great his first year was and how even greater it's going to be, in the next 5 years with the yellow machine and everything that you get will be ill-gotten and illegally-gotten. And Thomas and other people who support his government will be clapping for them. So we're happy for you. Maybe after the fire, when you come back, in the next administration, you'll be giving all the technical knowledge, but you can't give the technical knowledge right now against this government and speak truth to the president's face. So thank you for taking my call. I'll leave it for now.
Thank you. Our last caller here is the former Councilman James Nalasa.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brother Dennis. Let me say hi to all the panelists who were there too. So regarding the State of the Nation address by JMB, I want to say that in the first place, that the government has actually lost the PR front, especially lately as SONA has turned against it because of self-interest. So that has helped to really distort what should be a very great...
Mr. Lassa?
A very great... Yeah.
They say if you invite a drunkard to your party, be prepared to clean your vomit. Go ahead.
Exactly. And I do agree with that.
So don't feel sorry for them.
Oh, of course. and there's need for that, though. There's need for that. And let me just agree with the last speaker, Morris, when he talked about the yellow machine. I really think one of the key reasons for the crisis at the legislature is probably that none of them will speak about it. I personally suspect that there was a demand from KOFA for huge return on that yellow machine because certainly it had a lot of corruption into it, and so it couldn't work. And maybe that is the main reason why it led to the removal. I have no evidence. That's just my own personal.
Yeah, if you have no evidence, Jimmy, don't say it.
Correct. But you're right. Which is why I'm making this question. But Dennis, I want to say that the government has done very, very well. JMB has succeeded significantly, mainly based on his experience largely. Many people don't know the difficult situation to put JMB in by voting him in that place. They underestimate the danger, the challenge, the weight and damage that have been inflicted on that nation. That you have gangsters and mafias and 419 operators over there, and murderers and rogues that will kill for common if they see you as a threat. JMB is very cleverly and keenly threading that and destroying the system and replacing it with institutions such as the War Crimes Court. Right now, you can have people go to the court to challenge government officials who are members of party because you have the office of ombudsman working and functioning. You know what I'm saying? It's not perfect. But in order for it to be perfect, the opposition will have to work and be credible. They have to go to court and challenge those. You can't just be making noise. Now you have, for example, Dennis, you have Dennis over there talking about opposition leader. He didn't even talk about payroll, having the supplemental payroll, the corruption, nothing. Everybody for self-interest. JMB is the only one leading what is needed for the people in Nigeria. And the evidence is this. Someone was just asking, put me one thing. One key significant, let me put it that way, significant indicator of the achievement of this government is the general sense of personal security in the country, expressed in the nightlife of the country. I heard on a sister program, and they were attacking the government and put the phone on, and the responses were quite dramatic. And I heard a lady, I was sleeping really, but I had to wake up. Oh, yes, I have to tell you that we can speak solo now. The government has done well.
Thank you, Jimmy.
You know, so I could go and go
I know.
but I'm sure JMB is quiet because he knows that he's going to succeed, and I am convinced that he is a very good leader that we have now that can offer the most benefit to Liberians under the given circumstances that we have at hand. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the issue.
Thank you. We have we have 15 minutes to go, so let's go into our Tabata session. Let me start with.
But that is why you say amen. The man finishes. They tell you say amen.
Yeah,
you say like bro, you say amen. It means you kind of disagree, right?
Yeah. I disagree with Jimmy, but when I say.
Okay.
Yeah, I disagree. I mean, you can pin that rosy picture. We have challenges. He may be doing something good, but to just talk like that, and he's been in the house. I have a tremendous respect for Jimmy, but the way he's talking. Anyway, let's go through our Tabata session. Every day, there's some Tabata going on. Mr. Pearson, do you see some Tabata this week?
Listen, the biggest Tabata in Liberia right now was the Liberia National Police IG Gregory Coleman writing an illegal speaker to turn over the legitimate speaker to him for investigation. That is the biggest Tabata right now I see in Liberia.
Thank you. Mr. Salif, what's the Tabata of the week?
It has to be Koga jumping over Prince Johnson's, body to acquire godfather status of Nima County. I'm a traditional person, a culture. I come from a deeply cultural and traditional background, a grandson of paramount chiefs and things like that, people who are very deeply rooted in our culture. But I don't think those are for public spectacle, like Broadcast International, those kinds of things. It's, it's not supposed to be a Tabata, but that's something that's really stuck with me. How it was politicized, and there's a lot of thing about the Johnson story. Of course, and people disagree. People have different, the life he led and the roles he played in our war and all of that. But that particular piece, the culture, the politicization of it. And I watched another elder talk about how it's supposed to have looked like who should have done it and how it should have been done and what was wrong with it. It just made it very laughable for me.
Thank you. Thomas, your Tabata of the week.
I've been driving a lot this week, so I didn't really pick one up.
Mr. Dr. William, your Tabata of the week.
Well, I think despite all the negative PR this government is experiencing, to have heard that at least 3 MDR officials were dismissed for whatever reason was in my mind. One of the very lapses we spoke about earlier in the program. I think this government isn't strategic. I think they continue to hurt themselves by the decision, the knee-jerk reaction they continue to have with some of these actions on the part of government. And I thought that wasn't good at all, you know?
Yeah. Did they say the guy is NSA so he can't give tribute? I mean, I was myself confused.
Yeah, he's the assistant operations guy, but
right,
you know,
he was not given the tribute in the name of NSA. That was he's a party person.
The nature of the tribute. There are too many officials of government who are party officials at the same time, and whether or not they gave tribute or not, you saw the UP chairman who led a protest to the president's house for jobs. You know, we have a foreign minister who duped Liberians out of money, you know, and there's just, the list goes on, and those people kept their jobs. Why would, in an emotional environment like that, you know, I don't know, there are regulations, but there's also expediency. You know, given the tension the government is under, this is no time to continue to fire people for speech or their affiliations. So it's unfortunate. We're hoping Monday, like President Trump, who is making some transformative changes, you know, we want to hear something. Liberians want to wake up. They want to be motivated and invigorated with hope, but hope for the better, not with what we've experienced in the last one month, you know? Yeah. But thank you, Dennis. Thanks to everybody. The conversation was good. Yeah, and I hope we can continue.
And you said Trump doing transformative changes?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Trump says if you pay child support, you should be the one filing. That's transformative. You don't think so?
What about the 1,500 insurgents released? Anyway, let's
There are 48 executive order. You go into that a different show by itself.
I know, but thank you, gentlemen. Let's do a half a minute each for your closing. Let's start with Tom, who's in Gompa.
Yeah, I mean, to Elvis, I said the president, the speaker will come from the same party, and that's a democracy. I was saying that the time for lobbying will reduce. You know, it doesn't mean when the president and the speaker come from the same party that contravenes the democratic principles. You have a president in the US now that has a majority in the lower house and the upper house. It happens all over the world. So that's not what I was saying. What I was saying to Dennis was that the time for lobbying should reduce, and therefore the progress that the government will make should be fast tracked so that the country can move forward. So that was what I was saying. I mean, it was a good show. Like I said, the State of the Nation address, the constitutional part of it in terms of the state of the economy, the state of the security of the nation. One of the things we didn't talk about is the external threat that we could face as a country. I think the president is going to say, even though we are in a region where we have democratic backsliding, we are safe from external aggressions. Internally, we have challenges with police, fighting with people, arresting people. There could be a challenge towards that. But I think on the security side, the president is going to say Liberia is secure. On the economic side, he will talk about the macro issues, like we said, from the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank. and all of that. On his legislative agenda, we discuss some of those. And I think he's going to also present in terms of development what he intends to do. So we might have a lot of rules that are referenced. I'm going to build this rule, I'm going to build that rule. But what I would say to the president is see what you are able to build. Because I was a young person listening to Madame Senit. Every time she spoke, she said she was going to connect all the county capitals. And she left. We didn't see all of them connected. So I would say to the president, the rules that you are very sure you have the money to pave are the ones that you should talk about. Don't say you are going to pave everything and you don't pave it. It's not going to be something
What
cool.
is no car stock in the mall? You think that was a lie?
The president said after with 100 days, no car will be stuck in a month. And with 100 days,
That's why the president taking plea.
Yeah, they said it was drastically. The 100 days already passed. So this is what I love for us to put things in context. He said the first 100 days when I become president, no car will get stuck. And no car got stuck in 100 days.
In 101 days, cars started getting stuck.
That is outside the range.
Dr. Pearson, you're closing.
Before
you go that, Thomas, Matabata of the Week President Boakai is poised to soon ink a $5 billion concession deal with 3 U.S. Hey man, Wallace, stop this thing with your concession. Firestone is there. On track to secure up to $500 million grant, not loan, from the U.S. sponsor MCC. Yet FOL doesn't cover it. Go ahead.
I spoke about MCC.
He said, I think Trump finished freezing all that thing for 90 days or so.
For 90 days.
For 90 days, we're expecting it. You will not get it yet, but it will come. Go ahead, Mr. Pearson. You're closing. Let's do 30 seconds, please. We have to run.
Look, Dennis is laughable to say what Wallo is saying on there. When we complain that the president numerous travel will yield nothing, people argue with us on this very show and saying there will be fruits afterward. The year has ended. There's nothing to show for all of those multiple travels abroad, technically speaking. I think our country is in more distress than President Boakai took over from when President Boakai took over. I think the people of Liberia, their living conditions, their bread and butter issue is worse off than President Boakai took over. The people are not in a better state than they turned their country over to President Boakai. I think President Boakai failed miserably on the issue of drugs as a national emergency, and I look forward to him coming back with a recommitment. I think President Boakai flaunt on the rule of law and have our country in chaos right now, whether it's an organized chaos or controlled chaos. I ever want to characterize it. That chaos has led to the burning of one of our historic buildings in our country, and I think that is sad. And last but not the least, I think we are far from unity, and our country needs recommitment to unity and stability. For us to have a reconciled country. Thank you.
What we need unity for?
There's no progress outside of unity, because if we continue to fight, then we're not going nowhere.
Like what? We all have to agree, Kumaya, and being one political party. Is that what you call unity?
Oh no,
what is unity?
The 1.8 million that they put in the budget to assess the damage on our property will have been used for education. So in the absence of unity and chaos,
what is unity? It got nothing to do with unity.
Huh?
We don't need unity. We got nothing to do with unity.
Oh, then its development does not happen in chaos. It's a
no. The opposite of unity is not chaos.
The opposite of unity is not chaos. So you see, in 1990, during the 1990 war, we're unified.
We don't need to be unified. We don't have to be
unified.
It's not needed. What we need unity for?
Other parts were unified.
Rule of law. We need order.
1979 we're unified.
Anyway, you don't get it. Let me
Dennis, I thought you said we're moving on.
Yeah, let's go to Dr. William for your
talking about it, Dennis.
No, but you don't need unity. I don't even know my neighbor's name, but I don't take my trash and go put it to
That's not what we're talking about. It's not as
simple. Yeah, so unity is not needed. Let's stop talking this unity business. Let's go, Dr. William. We don't need to be united.
Yeah,
we just need to obey the law. That's it.
Now we talk about the new U.S. president.
Dennis, again, we hope that as of Monday and beyond, Liberians will, generate some renewed hope, inspired by what the president might have to say. From my end, I'm looking to see something transformative as far as governance, social and political governance concerned. There's a need for constitutional reforms, a robust reform agenda has to be announced soon to ensure that happens. We need clear perspective on what kind of government we hope to continue to run. Want to look at tenure issues as far as the legislature is concerned. We need to look at our representation, the size of our representation. We have to find ways to save money, and those have their roots in the structure. And so the governance commission, yes, they've undertaken and will continue to undertake all of these peripheral studies, but hey, we need to focus on those things that matter. And so we hope the president's statement on Monday can give us some hope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So join us Monday, 7:30, right here. So we're going to be doing an in-depth analysis of the president's State of the Nation address. I'll be hosting. Please take a day with us. Let's go to our governance consultant and advisor for the last word. Mr. Solis.
Thank you, Dennis. Like everybody said, I thought it was a very good conversation. We can disagree here and agree. We all love Liberia. That's why we're here. We want to see the country make progress. We want to see, we want Liberia to be a place where, we can go and live and contribute to and bring our children, those who are there, to be safe and happy and making progress, and so that we can compete internationally and regionally. So that's why I participate in these conversations. It's my way of contributing. And so thank you always when you invite us. I think President Boakai is in an enviable position to be president of Liberia. In this country, it's an honor to be president, but in a challenging context as it is, trying to really move the needles, to move the country forward in the right direction. There's nothing you can do that's right. I mean, I am not a surrogate of Unity Party or the president. I am not in his government. I don't advise him. He does not have, I don't have his ears to how to say, or the other way around. But our organization, we established Liberia Governance and Justice Initiative. One of the things that we're doing is to really try to promote a positive image of the country, to try to encourage Liberians in Liberia and in the diaspora that, yes, there are challenges. It seems very insurmountable and impossible at times, but Liberia is a beautiful place. There are a lot of good things happening that we could also, there are also a lot of good things that we could do. Let's focus on the positive and see the best in one another and make progress and move our country in the right direction.
On that note, I would say thank you, gentlemen, and thanks for those who watch and even those who will watch later. Until then, we close with a song that says, "We are all Liberians," and we look forward to the President's State of the Nation address on Monday. Good night and God bless.
We are